Hey everybody, welcome to the Be Your Own Hero podcast. It's Brittany Renew here back for another episode. And I wanted to do a little bit of a recap episode to share with you some learning that I had from a recent interview that I did with Kristine Newell. Her book, The Habit of Grateful, is just absolutely amazing. It's so impactful. It really just talks about the transformative power of gratitude in your life. And I wanted to just take a little bit of a deeper dive into how that has played out in my own life. And, if you watch or listen to the interview with Kristine, I mentioned my struggles with anxiety in the past. I know so many people struggle with anxiety, so I experienced that mostly in my college years and kind of, and I haven't shared too much about this personally, but I really do believe in, the idea that the things that we go through to be able to help other people go through those in the future. So to pay it forward in a sense. So I would love to share my journey with anxiety and hopefully that it would help you in some way. So when I went to college, I went to a college that was not too far from my home, but I did live on campus. So, it did give me some of that college experience without being too far away from home. And most of you know that I studied music, and it was honestly a wonderful experience. I loved it so much, and I met so many amazing people. But as life often does, when we have big life changes, it triggered something in me, and I hadn't really experienced this before, but I started experiencing very crippling anxiety, and it would just kind of come on me in episodes, and I didn't know. It was a foreign concept, so I didn't know how to react. I didn't know what was going on. I thought I was losing my mind. So through talking with some trusted people, one being a very dear friend who was actually a licensed counselor, I learned that I was dealing with, acute social anxiety. So it would just be these different triggers that would come about. And basically, I would just want to hide from the world. And I just wanted to live under a rock. I wanted to hide from the world, and I didn't want to deal with these different triggers that were happening. And I didn't want to deal with the fear and all these crazy emotions. Like I said, I just wanted to hide from the world because it felt too much. It felt too hard to deal with. And tons of people wouldn't have ever known that I was going through that at the time. I hid it well, and I think I often people do that when they're dealing with different traumas and different things like anxiety or what have you. So, I hid it well, but I did, thankfully, as I said, have someone in my life who was able to provide me with some counsel, and I started seeing her on a regular basis, and it really did help me process a lot of emotions and learn some ways to cope with it. And I thankfully never had to go on any kind of medication. So I can't speak to that aspect of it for people who deal with it at that level where they do need to go on medication. But thankfully I was able to utilize some coping mechanisms like positive self-talk and breathing techniques to really get me through things on a day-to-day basis. And I am a Christian. I've shared that before. And so prayer was another big aspect of that for me, praying for peace, praying for, God to give me the tools to be able to learn to cope with this. And I will never forget one night I was hanging out with this person who was a counselor and one of my other really good friends. And we were talking through some of the stuff, and I was having a really hard time with it. And we were listening to some worship music in the process. We're just kind of hanging out, just kind of really being together and praying and singing and just kind of doing all that stuff. And I just had this overwhelming moment of grief, and I just started crying. And because I was feeling the weight of I was feeling the weight and the burden of having to carry this this anxiety and this fear around with me all the time. it's, I use the word crippling because there's not really, I don't know another good way to describe it. And if anyone's experienced that, it just feels like this wet blanket that's over you. You can't get off. And, there was a lot of very miserable days in that time period. But, as I said, we were together and having this moment, and I just started sobbing under the weight of this, and I just felt God say to me, everything's going to be okay. I just felt this peace, this serene peace fall on me in that moment. And I knew that those words were true. In that moment, I knew those words were true. I knew that everything was going to be okay. And, that didn't mean that everything was magically okay with a snap of a fingers, but I knew that in the long term, everything was going to be okay and that I was going to make it to the other side. However long that was going to take, I didn't know the answer to that. But that promise that everything was going to be okay, that promise, I held on to that for so many years until I got to that point where I could look back and say, yeah, God was right, as he always is. Everything is okay. Everything was going to be okay. And I was going to make it. And now here I am. I made it to the other side. And I don't say that to say that I've conquered anxiety and I never deal with it anymore. What I say is that that really traumatizing experience that I was going through in a very constant basis, I did get past that. And it took me years and it took me lots of therapy to get to that point. And I'm a huge believer in counseling and therapy, especially with these particular issues. It's so hard to work through on your own, but through the power of all of these different things in my life, I was able to get to the other side to where I wasn't dealing with it on a regular basis at that level. And in referencing back to the conversation I had with Kristine, it wasn't until I discovered the power of gratitude in that daily practice to where I really got to a whole nother level when it comes to battling against anxiety and these fears and just these crippling beliefs that we have, these stories that we tell ourselves. In 2019, that's when I got into more of a morning routine. So I got into this very consistent daily practice of getting up, journaling, affirmations, prayer, doing visualization and gratitude. So by practicing gratitude every single day, it transformed my brain, which, there's so much science behind that, which we won't get into, but, I was reprogramming my brain to look at the world differently than I had ever looked at it before. So by going through all of those years prior, I had worked through a lot of things. And I got to that point where that next step was going to be changing the story that I was telling myself and getting out of that victim mindset. Because that's what it is. So getting out of that victim mindset and instead staying in an abundance mindset and a positive mindset and looking for positive things in the world. And our brains are programmed to validate whatever it is, the stories that we're telling ourselves, our brains are programmed just to validate that in the world. So if you're constantly looking for negativity, your brain's going to try to find it and validate it. So the opposite is true. When you're living in a positive mindset, your brain's going to try to validate that and find the positivity in the world. It's, again, not going to get into the science. There's so much about it. So, please research that and look it up. The Happiness Advantage, Sean Acker, is a great book to reference for that. But by getting into a daily consistent practice of gratitude, journaling, affirmations, and just getting into a positive mindset, that was that next level that I needed to really build up that muscle of resiliency. And by building up the muscle of resiliency, whenever I am faced with a negative situation in the past, that would have really really take me down I would say spiral down to a place I didn't want to be. And it would take me days, weeks, months, whatever the case, to get back to like kind of above the line, with positivity. But by building the resiliency muscle through this daily practice, I'm able to move so much quicker through the negative things that happen. So, life's always going to throw things at you. It's not like, it's not rose colored glasses. Shit happens, right? So by building up that resiliency muscle, I am able to react to something, accept it, and move on really quickly and not spend days wallowing in self-pity for whatever it was that happened. A really good example is real estate. Being in the real estate industry, contracts cancel all the time. You lose contracts, you lose clients, things like that happen. In the past, I would just be wallowing in it and feel like it's the end of the world. I'm never going to sell another house again. Anyone that's real, as you're listening, can totally understand that. Now I have built up that, I have changed that mindset to the point where when that happens, I don't spend any time on it. I do not spend any time on it. It is very much quickly, okay, can't change it. It's out of my control. Not meant to be. What's meant for me will find me. 100% believe in that. And we're moving on. Because if I'm staying in that negative space. That next good thing is not going to find me because I'm not going forward. I'm staying in the past. I'm going backwards. And all the good things that you want in life are forward. So by being resilient, being able to quickly move on from things, you're going to be able to get back and attract the goodness into your life. Because I believe God created an abundant world, and we can tap into that by staying in this positive mindset. And look, there's a lot of different things that happen in life, and there are some traumas that are, there's traumas that are going to be way harder to deal with than just losing a real estate contract, losing a business deal, something like that. We've got, death and sickness and terrible things that happen in this world. So I'm not making light of those, and it's certainly going to take you more time to process grief and trauma in those situations. But from just a day-to-day basis, if we can hold on to this mindset, it's going to help you keep moving forward in your life and business. And then when we do have these different traumas that come up with loss, real loss, you're going to still be able to use the power of gratitude to help you process that grief. In my conversation with Kristine, I shared about how when I was reading her book, it was at the time that I had lost my grandfather, and it helped me process grief in such a different way. So I can speak to that from experience. Whenever we are looking for the positive things and thinking of things to be grateful for related to that circumstance, to that person, whatever it is, we're going to view that circumstance differently. I mean, it's just the truth. So again, by doing all of this stuff on a consistent daily practice, you're reprogramming your brain. And so you're going to be able to respond in a different way. So you're growing in that. So every time you come against these situations, you're going to be able to respond and act quickly in a more positive way than you used to. So it's like, we're getting 1% better every day. I mean, it's kind of that concept. So, today I am so, so, so grateful to say that I do not deal with anxiety in the same level that I did years ago. That was a very dark place, and I am so grateful to be on the other side of that. And so anyone that is currently dealing with that, I would, first of all, I would say, I see you, I hear you, I know how it feels. It freaking sucks. Please surround yourself with people that are there to help you please talk to licensed professionals to help you, because there's a lot of great options out there these days to help you to move through these situations and try to get to the other side. Because the truth is, everything's going to be okay. I'm living proof of that. Everything's going to be okay. You can make it. I've heard this saying from someone who I consider a mentor, Jasmine Starr. She has an amazing podcast and a company that helps with entrepreneurship, and which I subscribe to, called Social Curator. So definitely recommend you checking her out. But someone I would consider a mentor from afar, Jasmine Starr. She often talks about how we have survived 100% of our worst days. So by you being here right now, you have survived 100% of your worst days. So that means you can make the choice to do something differently today to get you going in the direction that you want to go in. And again, that has been my experience learning by using the power of gratitude on a daily basis. So I am so grateful to be here where I am now, being able to process things in a better way and not be beholden to anxiety, which is essentially just being beholden to the power of our thoughts. So I'm in control of my thoughts instead of my thoughts controlling me. It takes a lot of work to get here, but I can promise you, if you put in the work, it is so worth it. I encourage you to do that work. Of course, I'm here for any questions, anything else that I can help you with to go on that journey. And again, highly recommend Kristine's book, Habit of Grateful. I'll hold it up again here for you. But please find some resource to help you go on that journey of making gratitude a daily practice. I will throw out another resource for you. I started doing the Miracle Morning years ago, and it has made a huge difference in my life. And the Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod, it's a book. He also has a podcast, which is fantastic, but it does help put all of those really great practices into a neat package, and you be able to like implement that in a morning routine. So it's a really good discipline. So I think that helps a lot of people. It helped me just kind of bring everything together and start doing these things on a daily basis. Because, having structure helps, it helps us become disciplined. So that's another really good resource, the Miracle Morning. So I encourage you to check it out. So thanks for listening and watching as always. I hope that this is impactful for you. Hope by me sharing a little bit about my story and journey with anxiety, it helps you go on that journey yourself, because you're strong enough to get a little bit better every day. Just keep going. I believe in you. Thanks, guys. I will catch you next time.